Very good morning to everyone, particularly those for whom it is morning, and very warm welcome, regardless of the time of day or night that it is for you as you tune into this in this session. Having a look through the chat, I see for many it's quite a wet morning. It's also quite a wet morning for me. And as some mentioned yesterday, this is a day of change in many ways for those in the UK, waking up maybe to different representations coming for us in our government features. And actually every day is a day of change and development and movement in the Dharma, in the teachings. And really, as you'll know, there's a strong emphasis around change and about what we can do in relationship to these changes. So we're coming to the last day of exploration of Alight, Enlight, and Delight. And as I mentioned yesterday, still a little bit more that I want to squeeze out of this principle, also this metaphor of light in a certain way. And we're using this exaltation of the Buddha, be a lamp unto yourself. And I mentioned earlier, it can also mean be an island unto yourself. Actually, that's become maybe the more common translation. So I will spend a little bit of time there and also see in what ways we can make sense of that. So yeah, really lovely to be here. Really lovely to see the Sangha radiating back at me as I'm looking through the chat and sensing you all as we settle into this Friday morning practice together, the last one together for a while. And I'll explain a little bit around a few more ideas here, also suggesting ways that we can bring this practice with us onwardly. Not that you have to just do this for the rest of time, but also with a sense that there are more and more ways that we can bring the Dharma alive, bring the meditation alive as we practice, as we go along. And we'll still have a good amount of time for some silent practice together, good half an hour of that, and then mention a little bit more about how Dharma is supporting us here, but not so much that we won't also have time for questions, reflections, and all the rest of that. So, as I just mentioned, although I see also many are kind of just coming in, so not to worry about that. Be a lamp can also mean be an island. So be an island unto yourself. To me, that can sound a bit remote. So I've actually avoided it for now, preferring to use the lamp and the light metaphor. So being an island isn't always a great metaphor for us. That view of oneself and can bring up the kind of isolationism, individualism, and what seems to be implicit there, the antagonism to others, rather than care, consideration, radiance, which to me sounds like it comes more naturally from the language. So to give you a sense, this is how it's phrased, translation here by Thanissaro Bhikkhu. So Ananda, his cousin, assistant, you should all live with yourselves as your island, yourselves as your refuge, with no other as your refuge, with the Dharma as your island, the Dharma as your refuge, with no other as your refuge. So what does this mean? If you wish, in the chat, you could put in like what's a positive message here for you? What's a positive metaphor of being an island? Yeah, really feel free. Like just pop it in the chat, and we can have it. We can kind of crowdsource together. In a way, I think it does sound very beautiful. but what's the beauty in that for you? You should all live with yourselves as your island, yourselves as your refuge, with no other as your refuge, with the Dharma as your island, the Dharma as your refuge, with no other as your refuge. So in a sense, we can hear that he's repeating himself. One hand, it's yourself, which is your island, and then the other, it's the Dharma, which is your island. Yeah. So some are seeing this sense of trust. There's also this sense of not being dependent. Yeah. The bliss of solitude, the calm stillness. Yeah. The refuge element of it. Yeah. I think it's the relief. There's a sense that one's own experience is all that can be counted on. Yeah. The self-compassion, the courage to stand alone in one's values. Feels true, but can't forget the interdependence. Right, exactly. I find it hard to let go of connection to others. Well, we are connected to others. Yeah, that yeah. Whatever happens, I will be okay. I like this. Maybe read this one. I think there's a really lots in here that of great value. But I don't want to take too long. But like, really read the chat, enjoy it, appreciate the wisdom of the Sangha. You are an island, but other islands exist. You're always part of an archipelago, which, for those who maybe don't know this word, like it's a collection of islands. Yeah, that these islands themselves, we could. I think that what Vinaya is saying here is, we could exaggerate what an island is, like deep down beneath the water level. We're actually also connected in deeper ways. Yeah, so love it. So there's this sense to be a light. There's also a sense to be an island. So islands that radiate light in some way also, and to be a refuge, and we need these refuges. We need areas where, say, something like nature is protected, a wildlife refuge, right? And as those of you who've been along for the week's journey, I've been quite regularly referencing this to confidence, which includes the confidence to, not be defensive and selfish and still be an island, right? So it's great. We can use this, and we can dive into that, and we can ask ourselves. And I think it really makes sense to step back at times, listen to a sutta, chew it over, develop it. And there's practices that we can do in relationship to that. Maybe if I remember, I'll come around to that. I didn't have it in my notes, but there are ways that we can take the suttas, speak to them, feel them, bring them alive in the way that we listen to them. And so I think what we're doing here is a really helpful way of going with the teaching. And yet we can read on, right? Because it wasn't that one line. The Buddha wasn't so brief in their descriptions that they didn't give more. So then he says, so how does a monk or a practitioner, whatever, live with themselves as their island, as their refuge, with no other, with the Dharma as their island, as their refuge, with no other as their refuge? And then it says, there is the case where a monk remains focused on the body in and of itself, ardent, alert, and mindful, subduing greed and distress with reference to the world. Subduing greed and distress with reference to the world. So it's a particular way of relating, knowing that body in and of itself, knowing our feeling quality in and of itself, knowing the mind in and of itself, subduing greed and distress with reference to the world. The mental qualities in and of themselves, ardent, alert, mindful, subduing greed and distress. Yeah. And that's how we live with ourself as an island, with the Dharma as an island, as a refuge. Yeah. And then recognizing, I will be gone. There will be times where there won't be a Buddha in the world. And of course, it was very shortly to come. And, kind of giving those tips of how to practice. And in this moment, we can know the body in and of itself, train to know the body. Know it for how it is, not for how we think it should be. You get familiar. And that mindfulness trio, to be mindful, to be ardent, to be alert, to be ardently directed, almost passionate towards wanting to be mindful, really needing to put that energy, that presence. How can we get to know? How is it really, not just, this is how it is. Really, is it like this and that? And alert to the fact that both the mind will wander away, but it will also create fabricated stories about how something is. And there's always more that it can reveal itself. Yeah. And that quality from that place, subduing the greed and distress in relation to what is here in this moment, what is here of the world in which we are living in, the world in which we are co-creating. Yeah, more and more of that goodwill comes in as we subdue greed and distress. It could be that it feels like it's gone more flat, but I think that what a lot of us feel is actually that it allows the heart qualities, the positive heart qualities, to radiate out through us. And then we take that from getting to know body, the form of this body, to the feeling, to the this would be nice, oh, that would be not so nice. Projection that actually happens in the experience that also leads to a lot of greed and aversion. Yeah. How we identify with the mind and the mind qualities that are passing through, with reactivity. And all of this really, for me, relates to alighting into the experience, knowing it, sometimes knowing it as if for the first time. Enlightening, unburdening, the pressure that we put upon that, allowing it to unburden and be delighted in, and radiating out the positive qualities. So it feels like we're an island that's not grounded in indifference, in any of the possible ways. Well, we're all just the same, all kind of not caring, that kind of not making the difference, or not feeling, just feeling indifferent. Oh, it doesn't matter. But with this insight, with the care, with the well-being, how I meet this matters. We're light, we get to know, we meet as sensitively and intimately as we can. Yeah. And we investigate it well and guide it towards freedom. Knowing, as many of you have pointed out, knowing that our experience directly as it's coming into being, which is to say, seeing how it's actually dependently originating, what it rests on, what it leans on, what ideas, what concepts are actually coming into being as we pay attention, right? What that also involves is it's actually an invitation to the wholeness of our life, right? We could say, yeah, I do meditation as a side project, little hobby, a thing I do in the morning, and then I get on with the rest of my life. And for many of us, whether that's our thinking, that is actually how we practice. So I've done my meditation, now on with the rest of my life. But meditation can also be for more than that, right? It's also part of the ingredients for a good life. And if that's the case, then why would we only meditate once a day? Or why would we view meditation as something that we only did once a day? Yeah. So we had a question earlier on, is there a certain amount of time you would recommend for meditation every day? And I started to touch upon this. I actually ran a course a while ago called Fulfilling Intentions, but I'm not going to go into the whole way of that. But just a few ideas is that I thought, what if we did just 5 minutes of meditation 3 times a day? Eventually we built up upon that, but like just 5 minutes of meditation 3 times a day. Would that serve us more than having a bigger chunk at one point in the day? What are the benefits of that? Of taking a moment, knowing the body in and of itself, subduing greed and distress in relationship to, you know, what it's showing, how it is, to the feelings, to the mind states, the noticing what hindrances are present 3 times a day, and working to introduce more like the awakening factors or the paramis, which are sometimes called the perfections. We've covered them in previous Sangha Live sessions. You can look, others have covered them as well. You can look at these beautiful qualities of heart mind that we can bring in, introduce into our experience. What if we practiced in more postures, all the postures that are available to us? Yeah. Doing practice standing if we can stand, doing practice reclining if we can recline, doing practice walking if we can walk, or in movement in various ways, whatever's available to us. What if we meditate there? What would that do to our island of well-being, our island of refuge? And we can make it really accessible. And when we notice that it's accessible, we get more likely to practice it. And getting more likely to practice it, we can really appreciate how nice it is to be doing this. And more we can radiate that through the fullness of our being. Right? And then we can also actually begin to speak about, what about bringing it to more and more things that I do? Things that don't typically get called meditation, like doing the washing up meditation, doing the bathing the body meditation, doing the cleaning up the neighborhood meditation. Yeah, and then from there back into a wholesome relationship to the body, heart, mind in this being, and seeing how they actually start to reflect each other. And I think of this as being like a sense of having our island, and on our island is a lighthouse that's shining out the beautiful, wholesome, beneficial qualities of our practice into the world. And that can be done intentionally, for as long as it needs to be done intentionally, until it just flows through naturally. So at first there's the discipline. Okay, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. Push myself out to get into that. Next becomes the dedication. The dedication level is a little bit like many of us have with brushing our teeth. Is, oh, I forgot to brush my teeth. I must do that as soon as I remember. I have a moment that I can do it. Pop off, brush my teeth. Same with meditation. Oh, I haven't done that meditation, that carpeting, hoovering the carpet meditation. I must do that as soon as I have the chance, not fill my ears with radio, podcast, other ideas. I really do it with that presence, knowing hoovering the carpeting within hoovering the carpeting. And then back to the body, heart, mind. How did that do? What did it do? How did it settle? And we have this practice of elevating circles. You know, like we have negative, vicious circles, something called, but these elevating circles of well-being, these positive, creative radiances of bringing our practice into the fullness of our existence and practicing for the benefit and the welfare of all beings, including ourselves. So let's have a bit of time for practice now. We had a couple of questions that we carried over from before. I'm certainly happy to open to any more. But one of them we had here was, I noticed a tightness around the back of my head and shoulders, which is kind of difficult to be with. Any supportive ideas? And that was from Elena. So Elena, take a lot of time with the relaxation. If you feel that that tightness is there, it can be possible that as we breathe, maybe we can breathe around that area and almost just imagine that our breathing is encouraging a softening and easing, and see if the body wishes to respond to that through softening, opening, relaxing. Can be helpful. Can also be anatomical, you know, about how we hold ourselves in that posture. So really, each of us, let's make sure that we're really supporting the body well, letting the chin tuck back if we tend to lean forward, letting the hands be supported if the head, the shoulders are feeling unsupported. To have the hands together in the lap, it can kind of pull us forwards in this way. Sometimes it's helpful to have the hands down onto the legs or somewhere like this, and that can just help roll that back, rolling back the shoulders, opening the chest area, tucking the head back so that it's well balanced. And then just kind of wriggling out of that, softening out of that so that it's not too tight. Feeling the support of the posture, the groundedness of the posture, connection with the earth. And feeling relatively centered in the body being. Knowing the body in the body, whatever that might mean. Trying to have a relatively uncomplicated experience. Getting to know what we can get to know. And as before, if the body doesn't feel the right place for you to be resting the attention for now, what about the sounds? What would it be like to know the sounds in the sound? Just these vibrations, frequencies, pitches, arising and passing. Same thing with the breath, movement, ripples of sensation, and the fading away, disappearance of all of that. For those who are finding that the mind and heart are happy to be following along with the experience, please keep going. For those of us whose mind is wandering a little bit more than is there so helpful, let's try some intimacy counting. What that means is count maybe the next 3 breaths, maybe counting upwards as we get to the full exhalation. But the intimacy, we want to really just feel that breath fully. And it's just a part of our mind remembering which breath we're on, what's the count. Feeling it fully coming in, filling, enlarging, moving the body. Noticing how it feels when it's inside. Noticing how it leaves. Where does it leave from first? Where do we feel that, sense that? So that real intimacy with the experience until we notice it's all the way out, all the way out. One breath. Next one coming in. If we notice we've wandered away, then feel that sense of responsibility to bring ourselves back to what we are dedicated to. That might take discipline, it might come easily. It's like, yeah, it's always better to be present, to be with our present experience. That harmonization, body, heart, mind together, knowing breath sensations, or if we're with the sounds, knowing those vibrations, ripples through the air. Being a refuge for yourself. Letting the Dharma come alive in yourself as a refuge. This time knowing body in the body. Might notice there are areas that maybe feel more blocked, more tense, more hard to be with. we can invite those to relax, almost as if for their benefit, to soften, so to allow what remains to remain. And this feeling of areas of the body that feel tight, you can also relate to, if you're working with sounds, to areas, appearances in the sound sphere that feel hard to be with. This categorization of a feeling of it being an unpleasant thing can often lead to aversion and the distress of aversion. But we can subdue, tone down the volume of our aversion, our rejection, or transform it into compassion, care. We can soften in relationship to that. So if there's an area of the body that feels a little bit hard to be with, a bit tense, what about breathing around it as if it's like a balm, a massage? Imagining the breath maybe coming in more around that area, even if it doesn't have any physical relationship to the breathing mechanism. You could just imagine that as we breathe in, there's a breeze of goodwill. And as we breathe out, there's a releasing, if it wishes to. As much as possible, having a sense we're doing this for its benefit, not our benefit. May you find ease. Noticing what's possible for you in terms of how you meet these experiences. It's not rejection, but a wholesome way of meeting. Challenging feeling in the body, the irritating sound, doesn't have to be rejected or reacted to. can be held in a spacious intimacy of goodwill. We can also see a similar thing at times. Maybe we're having a nice experience, or an experience we're classifying as pleasant, and we want to hold on to that. Maybe it's a thought fantasy, and it's, oh, the idea of coming back to breath or sound. Oh, don't want that. I want this. I want the fantasy, the illusion of happiness. I really want that meditation back that I had before, or I'm actually thinking about things I can get that will bring me happiness. We turn that greed into generosity, into gratitude. Breathe with it. Radiate it out, perhaps. Imagine giving that beautiful thing you want to get to another. Cultivating the conditions for wholesome experience, not just wishing for them. Harmonizing body, heart, mind, enjoying the pleasantness of that. So being a refuge, mindful, ardent, passionate, and alert, not asleep, but not tense. And that quality of alertness also resonates with an idea of quite a spacious, also very vibrant, radiant quality of attention. It's relaxed, it's tranquil, it's calming. It's not dull, really engaged, really knowing, intimate, sensitive. And this relates to sometimes called the hindrances of restlessness and dullness. And we're always moving along that energetic spectrum. It's not a problem to find ourselves in any particular location, but there's things we can do there. So if we feel a little prickly, reactive, restless, agitated, critical, overly critical, maybe the out breath, maybe a more spacious, receptive listening, allowing a softening, a dissolving, actually opening out the space, noticing the space, the hearing horizon, letting it be wide, the whole body. So that whereas there was too much energy for the space, we actually try and create more space. Harmonizing energy and space. If our situation was more one of dullness, maybe even boredom, lack of energy, apathy, sleepiness, we could stand up, open the eyes if it's really needs big change. It could be more that we actually see, feel a brightness in the breath as it comes in, as it wakes up the cells of the being, letting that in-breath be the primary part of the breath, maybe even holding the in-breath in, letting that exchange of energy maybe it's just in letting the posture come up, hold itself up. So if we're standing up for something, for wakefulness, brightness, in-breath, uprightness, interest. Maybe this will be the last breath we'll have. How would we want to meet that one? Last sound we're here. Maybe we can attune deeply into our intention, whether with the restlessness or the dullness. What do I really wish to see more of? What am I really dedicated, devoted to? Let that come through in how we breathe, how we listen. Taking this moment to rest into your refuge, your awareness, your sensitivity, your creativity. Into the collected experiences and skills you develop through your practice, today and over the days. And if you wish, you can make a dedication of this pool of radiance. And like a lighthouse from an island, we can radiate that out into the world. A positive message into the world. May all beings be cared for, feel safe. May all beings be peaceful, look after themselves well. May all beings, including ourselves, be free in every possible way. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for your presence, your inner presence and your giving presence through how you are, through who you are. And with real gratitude to all of us for doing these practices. We'll transition into the last part where we have time for any kind of questions and reflections and all the rest. So as I said, I will speak a little bit about dana today, as it's the last day where you can give dana for this week's practices. But before we do that, I actually wanted to share with you another possible way that we can do our practice. See if that works. Yeah, that link worked. So I'm going to be running a retreat day with a difference. Some of you may have heard about these before, but I haven't done one since last December. It's called Sacred Places. And it's a way of bringing our meditation practice into our neighborhood, or into the forest nearby, or into the rivers, or into a place of nature that is maybe not being very well cared for of late, or it could do with some more care. Or it could be our own garden or our own home or anything. And is it possible to make that a more sacred place, a more beautiful place, in a certain sense, a refuge for nature? So what we'll do is we'll meet. There's a US time friendly and an EU time friendly beginning. So it's 8 a.m. Central Time in the US and Canada. It's 8 a.m. in the UK. And we'll have a meditation together. We'll share our intentions, and then we'll distribute ourselves into our location. So we're meeting online and then going out into our location, picking up litter, clearing up a place, making it beautiful again, making it feel sacred, maybe to itself, but also from our perspective. A really beautiful day. And then we come together again in the early afternoon and just share a little bit about what's been our experience there. So it's a couple of hours of activity, and it's a couple of hours of meeting online. And it's a lovely way to turn the last Saturday of July into a day of service and a day of beauty and a day of meditation. I found it so nourishing. And if you haven't done litter picking before, you probably don't realize how delightful it is to be participating in those ways. It's much like a really good meditation. And when you get towards the end, you actually don't want to stop. And that's a really good sign for an experience. So there's a link there in the chat, but it's at sanghaseva.org. If you can't remember that, you can also look for meditationinaction.org later on and follow through the links back to Sangha Seva. Yeah, so I hope you're interested to join that. I know it may not sound appealing. Oh, litter picking, fantastic. But it really is. It really is fantastic. I'm not just trying to sell you on it. I'm actually maybe possibly alerting you to the fact that it's brilliant. And another thing that's brilliant, of course, is Sangha Live and many other Dharma organizations as well that run themselves on a Dharna basis. That the Dharma is offered on Dharna is such a great thing, in my opinion. That this is, of course, a very radical financial model by which to do things, but it's also a completely different way to live, completely different way of relating to our resources, making sure that everything is offered up front, it's given freely. Of course, there's hang-ups with any kind of thing where we're relating to resources and money and things feel limited and all of this, but everything here with Sangha Life that's doing all this work behind the scenes because they believe in this project, they believe in awakening, they believe in well-being, they believe in relief from stress and distress for all of us, and so they're putting those hours in up front, no expectation of something in return. And if the project doesn't work, they'll find something else to do. But if we believe in what they want to do, this is an opportunity that we can offer our time and energy and finances back into the system and just keep that wheel of Dharma turning. And I think it's a great opportunity for us that we can do that. Any donations that come in until tonight, Friday night, 5th of July, will also be distributed and shared with me, Nathan, and I will receive those very happily, and I'll use that to keep on turning the Dharma wheel in the various ways that I do. And yeah, really appreciate having the opportunity to share these teachings. And in a moment, I'll share a few more links of where we can follow up on some of the ideas there, if there are things you want to explore more. Yeah, it's really been a pleasure. And if you aren't in a financial situation where you can offer more, paying it forwards for future generations, then maybe it's for you to be paid forward for at this time. And your time will come where you're in a place and you're able to give more. But yeah, just speaking about that on the financial level, really don't feel pressured to give if you aren't in a place where you're able to give. And, I hope that we're moving towards times where there is more equality and opportunity for all of us to be well looked after. But I also recognize that it's not there. We're not there yet. So if you're struggling, please know you're not struggling alone. Reach out for help from the Sangha. We're here for all of us. And if you're able to give support on behalf of others, then really consider that, we have the good fortune and let's use it. Let's use it for good. So thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting each other. And thank you for supporting Sangha Live and those who come here to teach. Okay, so there's a few more links I think might be helpful to put in. I'm just going to put the name of the sutta. Oh yeah, thank you for those who are mentioning they've come to Sacred Places Days and how much they've enjoyed it. So that's just the name of the sutta. I'm going to let you find the translation that sings to you. That might slightly skew your searching because it's actually formatted in a way that I picked up from somewhere else. Yeah, it's I think you'll do well, whichever one you find. Let's put a couple more links over to things that I've written that relate to things that we've kind of talked about. Oh, and actually also one thing we haven't really talked about. So the top link actually takes you over to the Medium blog that I sometimes post my articles and thinkings. The first link takes us over to those ideas of practicing more times a day in small ways, working with whatever hindrances, resistances that are there present in our practice, and transforming those towards more freedom. The Dana link is actually all over the place, but hopefully someone can just put it in for us. If you go to Sangha Live and look for the Dana link, if you tried to get into this session, you probably had to skip over the Dana link. But hopefully someone can you put that in the chat for us, then I'll keep on rolling on without going over time. There's also that question, how long should I plan to meditate, that came up before. So I wrote a little bit about that, and it relates to various other ways that we can practice with intimacy counting and things like that. And then I also wrote an article I can see that I've put in there for various reasons, because I think it's relatively helpful, is actually how we relate to the news that's coming to us in the world, that we can use to use our meditative qualities to be able to relate to usually quite negative news that we expose ourselves to, and how we can turn that into fruitful energy for an awakened life. So talking of energy, Frederica, you shared a great question yesterday. I like the way of meditation. So that was that kind of spacious radiance meditation. I also noticed, even though it was possible to be more spacious and with goodwill, it takes energy. Exactly, yes. I have to bring some energy in first. It does not come by itself, like I know it from former times. Perhaps you can say something about that tomorrow. Thank you, Nathan, and everyone. Yeah, practices like this do actually take energy. So stretching out the awareness takes a bit of energy, but it turns out we usually have just enough energy to do that. It's not, it's not extra fuel packs kind of energy, but it does take some energy. But what happens once we have that stretched out is that it starts to kind of actually cycle up energy. And we can actually have the feeling of there's actually more energy coming through the being. It's like a brightening by that stretching out, almost like the yawn. It's like stretching out. And that starts to bring energy, positivity. Keeping going with that becomes, like a skill. So how do people get super strong through a gym? Is they start with the achievable weights and they practice those, doing it well, aligning well, feeling it well, doing all of that kind of thing. And then more and more that capacity to, I can quite easily just stretch it out, becomes easier to do. And yet it still brings a lot of energy. So yeah, it's not so much a pathway of diminishing returns. It's actually one of escalating returns at times, which introduces us into really kind of deep and beautiful states of being. And so I hope that this week has been a week where we've touched into things that have felt supportive and delighting for us, enlightening us, supporting us to really alight into our experience more and more. And yeah, let us be like positively, deeply connected islands that are radiating out our qualities into the world, like a lighthouse, like a sunrise. And may it be so. May our Dharma path shine a light into the world for the well-being of all beings everywhere, including ourselves. Thank you all. Thanks for being here, and take care. And I look forward to the next time I'll be able to practice with you.